You are listening to The Black Landscape with Andrea Spearman, where Black excellence is always trending. Welcome back. I'm your host, Andrea Spearman, and this is The Black Landscape, where we engage with emerging and established Black leaders here in the San Francisco Bay Area. I am a light-skinned Black woman with my dark brown curly hair currently in two-strand twists up in a bun. And today I'm wearing black and brown glasses and a dark red knitted sweater. Today we're here with Sebastian Chang. Welcome.
Thank you, Andrea. I'm Ellen, and I am, as my mama used to call me, coffee milk colored. So think of that black coffee with a lot of cream in it. So I'm a latte colored woman, Black woman, and today, because it's cold in Emeryville, California, I am wearing a salt and pepper wool beanie that has 3 little wooden mushrooms attached to it. I'm wearing glasses, black and brown flames, and a black pullover sweater.
Thank you. Welcome. Ellen, for those who don't know you, she is a force, okay? So y'all take note as we go through this story today, as we learn more about her. If you would, take us back to your roots. Were you always such like a strong energy, precocious child?
I saw myself as a fairly shy and timid child, but stories be told, my grandmother had a term for me. She called me a little piss cutter.
Wait, what?
That I was a piss cutter.
What is that?
That's a very old Mississippi Southern term, and the only way that I think I could define what a piss cutter might be is I think, someone who interrupts your flow.
Oh,
Someone who disrupts your flow, whatever that might be. So, I'm tipping my beanie to my mama because she had a way with words. And so I was born in 1955, August 27th, 1955. And as I like to position that, I was born the day before Emmett Till was Lynne. I also like to refer to myself as Rosa Parks' baby because the Montgomery bus boycott had not started, and miscegenation laws were rampant on the books of America, and I am the offspring of an African-American Choctaw man from Forest, Mississippi, whose family migrated north to Eastern Washington. And in college, my father met my Irish-German mother. They had a brief but secret relationship that changed the course of their lives and created the course of my life. And so I lived in a small farm town, agricultural town in Eastern Washington. The area was called the Tri-Cities. It was the landscape of the Hanford nuclear power plant, which was the largest plutonium producing plant in the world that created the plutonium for the atom bomb. And so a lot of Black workers from the South were enlisted to migrate from the South to come to that area in the 40s to build the roads to the power plant. And so that was the landscape that I grew up in as a child. And even though I say I was a very shy child, I was an only child. I didn't even know my mother was white until I was 10 years old. I didn't meet my biological mother until I was 13. And that's what brought me to California, was to get to know my biological mother at age 14. I moved from this small, very centered and segregated Black culture in Eastern Washington and came to Berkeley, in 1970. And so that's really the foundation of my personality. That's the foundation of my creative imagination, my desire to tell stories that are rooted, what I say, in the truth, the hard truths of America.
Mm-hmm.
That I am Black, but I'm not the same kind of Black as somebody else. I'm not my roots are not urban Black. My roots are country Black,
Mm-hmm.
Rural Black, which is very different than urban Black.
Mm-hmm. Very.
And so even though I've been in the Bay, age 14 till age 67, I'm still, got my foot here in the Bay. I still feel very much my roots, which are real country, fishing roots and tumbleweeds and being on your bike out in the natural world all day and stay out of trouble and come home when it's dark and that kind of stuff, but not with street lights, not with dirt roads. And I grew up in a shotgun shack with my grandparents. We had one bedroom. We had newspaper over our windows.
Mm.
It was a really small house, and it's the kind of image of a picture that if you saw the picture, you'd go, "This is America? Yes, this is America."
Yes.
And not in the South. This is America in the North as well.
Mm-hmm.
In the North, in Washington State. Yeah, I'm very, very taken. That was very influential in my life. And I would spend a lot of summers. My grandmother and grandfather, sometimes we would drive to Mississippi to go stay on my great grandmother's farm.
Mm.
She, from the time that I knew her as a child, she had no electricity. Here I am. I'm still consider myself a very vibrant, living person, but here I am. I used what was called a slop jar as a little girl, and a slop jar, which is also called a bedpan. So underneath the bed,
mm-hmm.
There, at night, my grandma would pull that out, and if I needed to pee, she'd open it up and I'd pee, and then she'd slip it back under the bed, and we'd take it out in the morning. And
wow.
And so it was a really marvelous childhood, and it really informed my imagination in ways that I still have yet to tap into.
Mm.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's my background. And did that make me a force? I think moving from a farm town where I was only centered amongst Black folks, and then moving to live with my Irish-German mother in Berkeley, who worked at the University of California, who the Black folks that she was associated with were what my grandmother would have called sedity. Oh,
mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Which just meant they were super educated and of a particular class, and might be considered kind of uppity. And I had never been around folks like that. And so it created in me both a sense of indirect shame because it made me very conscious of later in life, once I got more politically astute, understanding the power of class hierarchy that comes from all cultural groups.
Mm-hmm.
Those that have wealth and education, have a little bit of a, little bit of a non-generous attitude towards working people that might not appear to be academically inclined.
Mm-hmm.
And so I've found myself trying to always remember my mama and the people that I grew up with as I navigate spaces that, as an artist, that allow me to be in so many different spaces of privilege and, class and, and cross-cultural information. And so I really hold my roots really dear to me, really dear to me, and I have a lot of value in the common sense, wisdom, and intelligence that many, many people have, but you don't have a college degree in it.
No, I love that. I love that there's such a connection with historical memory and time periods that you have laid out for us that, you're saying have impacted you and affected you and inspired you as you've continued this journey as a multidisciplinary artist. And if you would just share with our audience, what are some of these disciplines that you've worked in over the years?
So to give you a little bit of a sense of me, like when I came to Berkeley to live with my mom, and I went to El Cerrito High School, I found myself really interested, and I think this was some influence. It was influenced by the interest of my mother. I became very interested in psychology. In that early period of living with my mother, and and my mother had a fairly diverse group of friends, through the university. And at that time, therapy was kind of a big deal, but new forms of therapy, things that were moving out of Freudian psychology. So there was Carl Rogers and this idea of Gestalt therapy and these forms of therapy that had you, investigating in group therapy, your childhood and working out trauma. Even though it wasn't framed as trauma, it was still in those modalities of sort of Freudian kind of like, oh, it's your parents kind of thing. And so in high school, I, was very drawn to mythology, religion. I was very interested in Joseph Campbell, Hero with a Thousand Faces, and those kinds, the hero's journey, those kind of mythic quests, but from a psychological, point of view. But then it was through my own sense of what I would say is finally having a breakdown of being so much in a white culture at that time, having come from a very, as I said, working class Black culture, and now being in this highly educated, Berkeley Hills kind of culture. I had my own personal breakdown. And it was through seeing a therapist that I started trying to figure out, like, what am I interested in? I want to go to college. I don't know what I want to do. And my therapist saying, well, what do you really enjoy? What do you enjoy? And I thought back to my childhood and I said, I've always loved the movies. And I've always loved television because I would watch a lot of TV and movies with my mama, and my therapist said, well, you can get work and things like that. You can do that. I'd never seen a play. I didn't know anything about theater, I just knew about what I had access to. And so I went to Laney College because I was a very low income teenager, because I started living on my own when I was 17 years old with a very close friend of mine. We both got an apartment together. Her older sister co-signed on the lease because we weren't even of legal age to have an apartment, but we got one. And I don't even know if I paid money to go to Laney College. It was so long ago. I have no memory. I think I don't even know if it cost anything,
Right. How nice.
College, and Laney was just at that time. Laney still had 16 millimeter film classes, and of which I started taking those classes, and then realized I'm too poor to be a filmmaker. Because I had no parental support, no, in terms of parental support, I had support, but not deep pocket financial support. I was working part-time. And so every time I tried to work on a little 16 millimeter film and then have to get it developed, it was very stressful for me. Because it made me feel like, it was the truth of my reality. I can't afford to fail. I cannot afford to experiment, because processing film and buying film, even though Lynne gave us the cameras, and gave us some film stock, I couldn't afford to make mistakes. And so I became very sort of dejected and like, oh, now what am I going to do? And I can't remember who it was, obviously, but some wonderful student there said, oh, you should check out the theater department. And Lynne just built a new theater, the theater that you see there. And they need students to help move all the new equipment into the new theater. And so I said, okay, I'll try theater. And I fell in love with theater. And in the back of my mind, I saw theater as, in my mind, the poor person's cinema. That's how it worked in my mind. Oh, this is the poor person's cinema. Because again, I had no concept of Broadway and that there were people that spent hundreds of thousands of dollars to produce plays, and so it seemed doable to me. And what my love in theater was actually lighting. And so I gravitated towards lighting design. And once again, I was the only young Black woman in the courses. I was like 19 years old. And I had some great teachers, but I also had some teachers that were not encouraging. And by encouraging, what I mean is that there was always that question, oh, are you sure you want to do this? Writing, yeah, I'll stay after school. So that made things challenging. You want someone as a young person who'll say, you can do that. You can do that. You can do that. And so during that time in the 70s, what was really amazing was that California had this program called CETA, which is something like the Comprehensive Employment Training Association. And San Francisco Neighborhood Arts was involved with it and was really instrumental in lobbying the state of California to create this program. It was the closest thing I guess I could compare to would be the WPA program that came out of World War II that Franklin Delano Roosevelt created, where a lot of photographers and muralists got work. And so I had the opportunity to get two jobs. One with Berkeley Poets in the School was just typing children's poetry. And then the other job that I got was working with Berkeley Stage Company, a theater that no longer exists, where I got paid to be on light crews. And it was minimum wage, but minimum wage actually paid my rent. And
it used to be able to do that.
My rent, and listeners will be like, no way. My roommate and I had a 2-bedroom apartment on McKinley Street, right behind Berkeley High School. And our rent for the entire 2-bedroom apartment was around $150. And I took the smaller bedroom. So I could pay less rent, because this is how financially shiftless I was. I was just like, I don't want to work that hard to like try to pay, half rent. I was like, I'll take the really small bedroom off the kitchen. But it was affordable. We were able to go to school, work part-time, and as I like to say, be young people, party, socialize, have little dinner parties, and, go to the Alameda flea market and pick up, cool Art Deco clothes. And it was just a different, economically, it was a different time. And so then I worked at Berkeley Stage Company. I was on lighting crews. I really developed through just a sort of like autodidactic, really studying hard, really watching other people, how they design. I became a lighting designer and ended up dropping out of college because, again, financially challenged. Why would I keep going to college in my young mind? Why would I keep going to college if I'm already doing what I like to do? And someone right now is giving me enough money to do what I like to do.
Mm-hmm.
Here's a little side note. I'm going to say that I learned much, much later as an adult that I wish an adult had given me this guidance to say, college just isn't about an education.
Mm-hmm.
College is about connections. What college you go to is going to help give. If you go to UCLA and you're interested in film, you're going to potentially be in class with the future Steven Spielberg or this person. You go to NYU, you might be a classmate with Spike Lee. And so college, I realize, is as much about connections as it is about the education. And so I'm not saying college is the only way to get through life, but maybe I would have taken college a little bit more seriously to heart if someone had said, it's not just about what you learn, it's about who you're going to meet.
Mm-hmm.
But as I tell people, starting when I moved to California, my mother, I love her to death, but my mother was not like my mama. My biological white mom was kind of a hippie, kind of a hands-off, call me by my first name kind of parenting, where I had grown up with a Black mama who's like, we going to church 3 times a week. You're behind coming home at this time, blah, blah, blah. You doing this, you doing that. Who was like, bam, you're going to get an education. This is it. And all of a sudden I moved to California and I am seriously a feral child. Feral. I'm a feral teenager. I got no adult guidance. And then I'm just out there in the world, and that's the way it's been for me. So lighting design, through the lighting design, I met an experimental theater company at Berkeley Stage Company called the Blake Street Hawkeyes. Never seen experimental theater. It was so, to me, for my little young 19-year-old, I was like, what do these white people do? What is this? Interesting. So I learned about, Anton Artaud and Grotowski. I learned how they were, taking things from African-based ritual theater and, and dance and all these things. And the Hawkeyes really liked me and my work and said, why don't you join our company and become our technical director? So I actually became their technical director and still worked part-time at some different jobs, one being UC Extension in San Francisco on Laguna Street, where my job was, I was a registrar. I had a great boss who would allow me to go on California Arts Council tours with the Hawkeyes and I wouldn't lose my job. Again, a very different time in history. And it was through the Blake Street Hawkeyes, we went on a CAC tour one year, and we were doing workshops in San Diego. And one of the people that showed up to take our workshop was this really interesting, and I was like, yeah, she's cool, Black woman who called herself Whoopi Cushion. And she said, I want you. She was like, I have a comedy group, a comedy duo, Victor and Goldberg, and we're performing at the Sushi Gallery. Come see the show. And we're like, yeah. And so I remember seeing this woman on stage with little dreads, performing. I was like, and then my first question to her after the show was like, hey, can I sleep at your house? Because I'm trying to save that per diem. I don't want to spend it on a hotel or anything.
Right.
Was living. She said, sure, come stay at my house. Come sleep on my floor. Yes. And then later that woman came up to Berkeley, and that woman was Whoopi Goldberg.
Mm-hmm.
And by the time Whoopi joined the Hawkeyes, I was moving out of the Hawkeyes as the technical director because I had gone to Paris to be a part of a festival called Les Intérieurs. And I had created a solo performance that I wanted to design the lights for called Blackwomen's Bed, but I ended up performing in it and co-designing the lights and took the show to Paris, and that changed my life. And I came back and I was like, I have a show that I want to create. I have a vision for it. And so that's how I moved into what's now called devised work.
When you are shopping for essentials, isn't it annoying to see the high-priced brand labels for basic everyday products? Try Brandless instead. Brandless is one of the world's fastest-growing commerce platforms. They make it easier for people to take better care of themselves, their families, and the planet by working with the best ingredients, partners, and customers to drive community-led innovation and validation. By focusing on collaboration over control, quality over packaging, and people over promotion, they're leading a movement that believes that making better choices should be simple and easy. All of their products are high quality, yet offered at simple, fair prices. I've been using the essential oils of eucalyptus and lavender in my home for years and given out many gift baskets from their beauty line. Just last year, I purchased a set of wine glasses and a cheese platter kit that has been used for many family gatherings. For every product sold at Brandless, you can be sure that they've scoured the world to research and meet the quality gold standards for that category. They really prioritize offering products that match people's values, preference, and requirements. Whether it be organic, non-toxic cleaning supplies or cruelty-free and clean personal care products free of over 400 questionable ingredients. Their products are crafted with intention, so you can brand less and live more. Get 15% off your purchase today by using the link in my bio. Try Brandless today and save on beauty, health, and home decor.
And I created my very first directorial sort of, some people call it playwriting. I just call it, I play with words. I don't really consider myself much of a writer. Playwriting is such a really disciplined, phenomenal skill. And I created this show called Your Place Is No Longer With Us. And it followed, it took me a year to find the locations because I wanted the work to take place in a private home, not in a theater space, but a private home. The reason I wanted it to be in a private home is because I love the idea of an audience following a 10-year-old girl from room to room in a house, listening to her fantasies and her little girl coming of age stories. And I wanted the Black woman actor who represented my grandmother to be in a kitchen cooking a meal throughout the performance so that the audience would have this total sensual experience of like walking through these different rooms, experiencing these scenes with these different performers, but then they start to smell food, cornbread in the oven, greens cooking, black-eyed peas, with salt pork. And once in a while they'd hear the mama's voice yelling from the kitchen. She would yell out to the little girl, "What you doing up there? You awful quiet." Some of the lines would be like, "What you doing up there?" And the little girl whose name was Dee would say, "Nothing, Mama. I'm not doing nothing." And then the mama would say, "Well, I just want you to know, I can't see what you're doing, but God sees everything."
Mm-hmm.
So just using my mama as my muse for this play, and the audience would then all end up in the kitchen with the 10-year-old girl and her mama. And the 10-year-old girl would be, snapping the beans that were going to get cooked, the green beans, or, washing the greens. And the grandmother then would just share her wisdom, her mother's wit, to the little girl. And how the show ended was that the grandmother said, "Whoa, I need to go. You need to go get my wig because we need to go to the market." And then she'd give a little shopping list and she goes, "You got that?" And then she'd turn around as she's about to touch her purse and she goes, "Oh my Lord, we have guests." So it's the first time the audience is recognized. And then all the other fantasy characters from this girl's imagination will run into the kitchen and we just start pulling out plates and bowls and we would serve the audience black-eyed peas, cornbread, greens. We'd serve 30 people after every performance. And that was in 1981, 82 that I did that show. And we did the first performance in the Oakland Hills at a really large house in the Oakland Hills. It was very successful. And then we found a house that was even bigger, and the house still exists. It's on Divisadero right off of Haight Street. And it was a huge Victorian mansion. And then we did the performance there. And that show was sold out. The entire run was sold out before the show even opened because we can only accommodate 30 people a night. Traits, and I needed to find houses where you could fit 10 to 15 people in a bathroom because one of the first scenes takes place in a bathroom. So you can only imagine how large these bathrooms had to be.
Right.
So these were like big houses. And when I think about that work today, I go, and this was all done with me meeting people who would introduce me to people who would have these houses and I talk and I pitch this show to them and they go, "Oh, sure." And I'd say, and we have enough money, we could pay your rent or pay your mortgage. No problem. We need to be here for at least a month. No problem. Which rooms can we use? These, but you can't use these rooms. And so we'd map out this whole show.
Yeah.
And it was like, I go, could you even do that today? There's nobody. Real estate is so prime right now and insurance and all these things that people were not as stringent about at that time in the Bay Area. So, all the actors and designers, we all got paid. We always split the box office and we always took out the cut for the renters or owner of the home and their rent for the month. And somehow we all made it work. And so that was the piece that really, I don't like those terms, put me on the map, but where people looked
elevated.
They just looked at me, they looked at me and said, "Oh, who is this young woman? This is really interesting work." And from there, I kept creating my own shows. And I have to say that the piece that for me was near and dear to my heart was a work that it took me 8 years to bring to fruition, which was The Sanctified Church, based on the book of Zora Neale Hurston. And that was opened in 1987. And it opened at my theater because one of my big dreams was that, I'm going to have my own theater by the time I'm 30. And Life on the Water at Fort Mason Center opened 2 months after I turned 30, Wow. It was a 200 seat theater in building B at the Fort Mason Center. And we were in existence for like 10 years. And so then I became a producer of work and still continued to try to direct and do my own work. But that became really challenging while running a theater. Even though I had 3 other partners, it was still challenging to make my own art and run a theater. So, yeah, and I've been directing, and I've directed Balinese dance dramas. I've directed stage plays. I've directed musicals. My own personal work of me, like creating it from scratch, I have not done that in years. I've just been collaborating. One of my longest running collaborations is with Amara Tabor Smith. Amara and I started working together in 2000, and then really started collaborating in a sort of like equal relationship in 2012. And that has been a big focus of mine. I'm just trying to go through my head and figure out, is there something I'm forgetting here? But
no, this is great, memory and journey. This
yeah,
is absolutely wonderful.
Mara and I are now in the final moments, rehearsals of the final episode of House Full of Black Women, which has been an 8-year journey. And
Wow.
we created 15 episodes during that time. And
Has it been 15?
yeah, this final one is what was called episode 15, This Too Shall Pass.
Mm.
And I have to say, House Full of Black Women truly has been the most personally instrumental creative project I've ever done in my life, because it's been the work that has challenged me the most privately. Because it challenged me so much privately, it has allowed me to grow so much publicly.
Yes.
Publicly, where I am understanding my own personal art practice in a manner that I don't think I could have ever grappled with without the incredible challenges of this work. And I'm using challenge in a very positive way.
Mm-hmm.
I do think challenge is positive. Challenge is what makes us feel, or at least makes me feel, the most alive.
Well, this is fantastic to have gotten such a large picture of your history and inspiration, and especially this relationship, with the Amara Tabor Smith and the House Full of Black Women. Thank you so much for sharing all of this with us today.
Thank you. What else? I mean, because, oh my God, what I always tell people, I go, and again, my grandmother's everything to me. My grandmother used to always say, keep living, baby. That's the only way you're going to keep finding out, is you got to keep living. And then I go, yeah, it's true. I am 67. I'm 67. And I go,
67 where? People would not know just looking at you.
And that's why for me, I go, I am so happy to tell people that I've had 67 years of living. And it doesn't mean that I know more than you as a young person, but what it could potentially mean is I know something different. I've experienced something different. And so to me right now, we're in this really dynamic moment in history where I think we really need intergenerational collaborations, and not because old folks like my day, blah, blah. I'm like mom's Mabley that way. Don't talk to me about the good old days. I was there. Where was they? So I'm not a nostalgic person, but I'm saying it's good to have someone say to you, when I was your age, my rent was $75. And not as kind of a flex, but to say the cost of living is out of whack.
Mm-hmm.
The wage was out of whack for years, and still is. Is that we have rents that are $2,000 and $3,000, and young people are making, who can live on $15 an hour? Nobody can live on $15 an hour. Nobody. And so I think the intergenerational aspect of collaboration and sharing our stories is so that we can reverse or change or implement actions that say what we've done to life, especially under a capitalist system, is inhumane. Mm-hmm. You know, it's not like the 80s or the 70s or the 60s or the 50s was like some incredible time. Like, you know, there was and there still is rampant racism, homophobia, sexism, you know, body shaming. What I see and tell my 25-year-old, I go, this is an amazing time to be alive. I said, oh my God. I said, I love, you know, that women are coming out and saying, I'm fat, you know? And I said, because it gives me a chance. I go, I don't ever want to say I'm overweight again. How stupid. I like to tell people, I go, yeah, I'm fat. And I like it. I got some fat on me. And there's no shame around that. And I like the energy of being able to say, I'm 67. Why would I be ashamed of that? So I love this moment in history. And that to me is the arc of slow change. Mm-hmm. Change is actually really, really glacial. I mean, the glaciers are melting faster than we're changing sometimes. You know, so for me, I go, yeah, I am learning from young people. I am learning. And so I need to be in relationship with people who are ages 10, 15, 25, 35. You all have had such a different childhood and life experience than I've had. So I am learning from you. And so that's why I say, what can you teach me too? I need to listen, humble and say, okay, explain that to me. Explain that to me. Okay, I'm trying to understand. I don't quite get that. And that's where I feel like politically, our politicians need to be a lot more humble and get out of the way so that we need more young people in office, more, you know. But again, here I go. I can be a soapboxer that way. So ask me what's next.
Yes, that's okay, because sometimes you have to toot your own horn so that people can find you. So where can the people find you and connect with you, Ellen, online?
You know what? This is my big joke. Father Google, honey. Just Google, because I don't have a website.
You're on Instagram sometimes?
I'm on Instagram sometimes. I kind of take a little bit of the stance that people who are looking for you, they always find you. Whatever you're looking for, you're always going to find. The reason I just want people to know, I am not against websites, but I don't want one. And I'll be really clear why I don't want one. I don't want another thing that I have to manage. I don't want another thing that I have to pay for. I already pay for the internet. So I go, whatever someone writes on Google, figure it out. You can find me. I'm not in the weather underground. I'm not hiding. Anybody that's looking for me can find me.
Well, there you have it. You can find Ellen Sebastian Chang in these streets. Thank all of you out there for listening and supporting another season. This has been another episode of The Black Landscape, where Black excellence is always trending.